This is for Math 1 checkpoint. The first problem is negative 2/5 plus 1/2. So we look at the problem, and one of the issues is one of the numbers is negative and the other number is positive. So when we have a negative and a positive, we know we need to subtract. But we also have to deal with the fact that it's a fraction. So we need to find a common denominator, which means the bottom two numbers have to be the same. In order to do that, we look at 5 and 2. So in this case, we can say 5 times 2 equals 10. Okay, so again, we need a common denominator or bottom number. So let's do 5 times 2 equals 10. And then again, since one number is negative, we need to subtract. Okay, and then also we have 2/5 and 1/2. 1/2 is bigger than 2/5. Okay, so we're going to write 1/2 take away 2/5. And then we're going to work through how we get equivalent fractions with using 10 as our common denominator. Okay, so 5 goes into 10 2 times. We have a 2 here. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 1 is 5. Put a line there. Forget about these. These are kind of gone now, okay? So have our subtraction sign. 5 take away 4 is 1. And then our bottom stays the same. And that's our answer. Okay, next problem is 3/4 take away negative 5/12. So when we have a negative and a negative, it's going to turn to a positive or an addition. Okay, so in this problem, we could change these two signs here. This becomes a plus, and this becomes a plus. Okay, so we have 3/4 plus 5/12. Again, we need a common denominator. 4 and 12 are not the same. So does 4 go into 12? It does. It goes in 3 times. So we're going to use the common denominator 12 and put a 12 on the bottom. Since these two numbers, 12 and 12, are the same, we don't need to make any changes on this fraction. But this one, we're looking for equivalent fraction with the bottom of 12. So 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Now I can add 9 plus 5 is 14 over 12. Okay, and then this is converting the fraction. Okay, so if we look at converting this fraction, the reason you would do that is because the top is bigger than the bottom. So 12 goes into 14 one time. So there's your 1. 12 times 1 is 12. I have 2 left over. So 2 goes on the top, and my bottom stays the same. And how did I get the 1 and 1/6? I reduced it down. So I made it even smaller. So I know that 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 12 6 times. So that's your answer for that. Here's number 3. Negative 5/7 plus 4/5. Okay, we have a negative and a positive, so we will subtract. Which one is bigger? In this case, it's 4/5. So I'm going to put 4/5 and then 5/7, and it's going to be a subtraction problem. When we have an addition sign to add and the signs are different, that means subtract. So our common denominator is 35. 5 times 7 is 35. Okay? 7 goes into 35 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 goes into 35 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. then I'm going to subtract. 28 minus 25 is 3. Bottom stays the same. Okay, so let's practice adding and subtracting positives and negative numbers. So the rule number 1 for addition is if the signs are the same, add them and use the sign. If the signs are different, subtract and use the bigger sign. So for this problem here, we have -8 plus -8. Signs are the same, so I keep the sign and I add them up, okay? 8 plus 8, signs are the same, I add them up, keep the sign. -9 plus 1, signs are different, I subtract. It's negative because 9 is bigger than 1. 9 plus -1 is 8 because 9 and -1 have different signs, and 9 is bigger than 1, so the 8 is going to be positive. Okay, with subtraction, I reverse the middle signs, so subtraction has an extra piece to it. Okay, so if I have -10 minus 7, I'm going to make this negative a positive and make this positive a negative, and then I'm going to go back and use my addition rules. So I would end up with -10 plus -7. So the signs are the same, so I add them up, okay, and I keep the sign. On this one, I have, and I already switched it because I did this earlier, so let's do a different problem there. Let's do 3 take away 7 equals. So I'm going to change this plus minus. So now I have 3 plus -7. Signs are different, so I know I need to subtract. Sorry, I'm trying to do this. 4. And then 7 is bigger than 3, so it's -4. 10, okay, this one's already switched too, so let me rewrite it over here real quick. 10 minus, okay, let's do a different one. So let's say we have -10 minus 7, okay? So I'm going to change this to plus and this to negative. So now I have -10 plus -7 equals -17. Okay. So now we're looking at math checkpoint 4, rules of exponents. Okay, so for the first rule, we have XA times XB equals XA plus B. So an example would be 3 to the third times 3 to the second equals 3 to the fifth. How did I get 5? I just added 3 plus 2. Okay? On the next one, x to the 0 equals 1. So 3 to the 0 equals 1, 4 to the 0 equals 1. Doesn't matter. If it has that 0 after it, it's 1. On the next one, we have XA parentheses B equals. So in this case, it's XA times B. So here's an example. 3 to the second, parentheses 3. So I know that it's going to be 3, my big 3, and then 2 times 3 is 6. The next rule we have x, -a. When there's a negative exponent, you know that you're going to move it down, okay, and put a 1 on top. So an example is 3, -2. So I just moved that down. I dropped the negative sign, and I turn it into a fraction. And the next rule is XA over XB equals XA minus B. So an example would be 3 to the third over 3 to the second equals, and then we just do subtraction. So for the first rule, we did addition. For this fraction rule, we do subtraction. So 3 minus 2 is 1. So basically we have 3, 1, or 3. Okay? Okay, so the first problem is 5 to the 4th times 5 to the negative 1. So I keep my big 5. I'm using rule number 1, and so I'm taking A plus B. And in this case, I have a negative, so it's subtraction. So it's 4 minus 1, which equals 5 to the 3rd. The next problem we have 3 to the 3rd times 3 to the 3rd times 3 to the 6th. Again, this is rule 1, and you're just going to add all those exponents up, keep your base number, and you're going to get 3 to the 12th. For number 3, we have x squared times x fourth times negative 2. So if we do, the first part of the problem just sits right on top, okay? The second part of the problem has to go down because it's a negative, because 4 times negative 2 is 8. So the 8 goes on the bottom, okay? And then we use the rule x, which is A minus B. So the top is A, the bottom is B. So it's 2 minus 8 equals x negative 6, which turns it into a fraction and has to go down. So there's quite a few steps. Number 4, y minus 2 times y over y2 times y3. Okay, so on the first one, you know it's going to go down, turn into a fraction. The next one is going to stay put, and the next one we'll just put a 1 underneath it, so we remember that it's on the top. Now we combine all those together just straight across. Okay, so let's see, y2 plus y2 is y4, and then y3 is on top. And then we can cancel those out, and we're left with, or we can use the rule and do 3 minus 4. There's 3 y's on top, 4 on the bottom, which is going to give us 1 y on the bottom. Number 5 is 3 to the 3rd power times 3 to the 5th times 1/3 to the 2nd. Okay, so let's just look at the first part of the problem. 3 plus 5 is 8, so we know that that's going to be 3/8. The second part just means that there's 3 2's on the bottom. So we're going to have 3/8 on the top and 3 2's on the bottom. And we'll just use the rule to subtract A from B. So we have 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 minus 2 equals 3/6. Okay, so I know this was a lot of information. I will try to put on some other assignments that will support you in learning these concepts. Please let me know through email, text, what you need help on. Okay, thank you and have a good day.